What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video. We're gonna be taking a look at the fairy queen herself, Titania. So Titania has gotten minor tweaks over time, but she still remains the same, but an amazing frame overall. It's just people don't know how to play or mod her. That's why I'm doing this video for you guys, and these will be the best builds out there. So let's get to know her, starting off with her kit. Her passive gives her 25% bullet jump and rolling distance, and leaves a trail behind her that lasts for 5 seconds and grants the same effect to allies who pass through it. Her first ability, Spellbind. Titania sprinkles fairy dust wherever she aims at, that grants status immunity to her and allies. Casting it on enemies will crowd control them. The enemies drop their weapons and become floating ragdolls, unable to do anything to defend themselves. Shooting them will push them further away if you don't kill them first. Once the effect has ended, they will scramble to pick up their guns. This ability is affected by range and duration. Tribute, her second ability. I get why people are confused by this, because it isn't explained in detail. Casting this ability on enemies will grant you a buff corresponding to that particular enemy type. You deal some impact damage and purge their souls from their body, and you would have to manually pick up that soul to obtain the buff. This is the only downside to this ability. Casting it on drones, MOAs, or summoned mob units will grant you the full moon buff. This gives 75% damage increase to all companions and Titania's razorflies. On ranged enemies, you gain Dust, a buff that reduces enemies' accuracy by 50%. On melee enemies, you gain Thorns, a buff that reflects 50% of the damage back to the attacker. And on heavy units, you gain Entangle, an aura that slows enemies' movement by 25%. All these buffs last for 120 seconds and do not scale with duration or power strength. The knockback damage scales off power strength, and the purge soul pickups scales off duration. And the buff radius sits at 35 meters and does not scale with range, however the casting range does. Picking up a new tribute will refresh the duration of the active buff, and all 4 buffs can be active at the same time, making her pretty hard to kill if played right and smart. Her third ability, Lantern. This turns enemies into a floating beacon that attracts enemies like mindless zombies. This is a great CC tool to divert and halt enemy fire, and enemies close to the beacon will take heat damage every second. This beacon is immune to any damage, and shooting it will allow you to change its position, and when the duration runs out, it will detonate and deal heat damage within the area, but you can manually detonate it by holding down the ability. And now, the ability everyone knows Titania for, and that is Razor Wing. She shrinks down into a fairy form and gains the use of her Dex Pixia and Dewata, the secondary and melee exalted weapons, the only frame to have 2 exalted weapons, which can be modded separately, and their damage scales from mods and power strength. She also gains 50% evasion whenever she is in this form, and also commands her razorflies, tiny drones that draw enemy fire and annoy the enemy till it's dead, or till the razorflies themselves die off, as they do take damage from enemy fire, and they can only be resummoned by going in and out of your Razor Wing. You also lose the use of your Sentinel but gain the benefits of their mods, like Animal Instinct, having an enemy and loot radar. And also, good thing to note, your flight speed in this form is affected by movement speed mods. Alright, let's take a look at how I've modded her. This is my favorite loadout for her, and she is hard to kill and is able to use all her abilities with ease. In the aura, I have Aerodynamic, grants me 24% damage reduction while airborne, and 6 seconds of aim glide and wall latch, but the damage reduction is all that matters. And Aviator in the X-List for 40% damage reduction while airborne. So in total, you gain 64% damage reduction while airborne, and being in Razor Wing counts as being airborne constantly. Power strength is at 210% with 2 Umbral mods combined and Transient Fortitude. I have max efficiency at 175% with a rank 4 fleeting expertise and streamline, and a nice energy pool with primed flow. And to deal with negative duration, I have primed continuity, and lastly adaptation for the added defenses. I'm using arcane precision to increase my pistol damage by 120% for 8 seconds when you get a headshot, and arcane velocity to gain 80% fire rate for 6 seconds when you crits, increasing your overall DPS. But for those who want to use the augment, you can simply replace Primed Flow with Razorwing Blitz. With Razorwing Blitz, I recommend not having velocity, as you will completely deplete your magazine, because you already gain increased fire rate and flight speed when casting your abilities. The more abilities you cast, the more you gain. The only useful exalted weapon Titania has in her arsenal is the Dex Pixia. I have it modded for crit and viral, Hornet Strike for the damage, Lethal Torrent for the fire rate and multi-shot, and Barrel Diffusion for even more multi-shot. The 2 primed crit mods for the crit chance and damage, using Pistol Pestilence and Frostbite to gain viral and boost the status chance. And lastly, Gunslinger for the 72% fire rate. Since I have Arcane Velocity, there's no point for anemic agility, or you're just going to deplete your magazine super fast. With this viral and slash, you're going to shred the bad guys regardless of the faction. But if you want, you can also replace Gunslinger for even more damage. It's up to you. And the Duwata, even with the melee rework, this still remains pretty useless, but you can make it useful, and that's by turning the melee into a healing melee. I have modded this for damage, crit, and corrosive, along with life strike, healing 20% of my health with heavy attacks. Quickening grants me 40% attack speed and 20% combo count chance. Very useful to have a nice small burst heal. And now for those looking for a budget Zero Forma build that does almost the same damage, but you do have less power but a decent amount of tankiness, and you do have that max efficiency and a good chunk of energy. Alright, this is for the adventurous peeps who want to take Titania to Eidolon hunts. She will take the role of the main Synovia DPS and the Unairu Wisp provider for your Madarai Shield DPS squad mates. Unlike other frames who can pick up this role, Titania will not be using any snipers or kit guns as the main damage source, but rather her own exalted pistols, built for crit, damage, and elements. Since you won't be in your Razorwing 100% of the time, you won't have to worry about buffing yourself or building up a sniper combo counter. Void Blast for the Unairu Wisp, trigger your arcanes with any equipped guns in the downtime phases, go into your Razorwing and shoot down the Synovias when the Eidolon gets up. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about or want more information and details on how this role or how everything works in the hunts, do check out my Ultimate Eidolon Hunting Guide series. I have the entire series available on my channel. Alright, let's take a look at the build. I do have an aura forma, hence why I'm able to change my aura without any negatives. The aura will be enemy radar for the 30-meter radar to help spot Vonvalists, and this build has a lot of power strength with 2 umbral mods, Blind Rage, Augur Secrets, and Transient Fortitude, reaching 333%, which gives Titania a nice boost in raw damage, but that does reduce our efficiency and duration. Using a max ranked fleeting expertise with Transient Fortitude will kill the duration hard. But the thing is, you will only be working with one ability, so you don't have to worry about anything else. Both efficiency mod at max rank, and you still get 135% efficiency. This will have your Razorwing drain 16 energy on the initial cast and drain 8 energy per second while it's active. You have an energy pool of 225%, and don't worry, you're not going to be in this mode for that long, so you won't run into huge energy problems. And in Eidolon hunts, regardless of what your role is, you're always going to need a lot of energy pads. Natural Talent speeds up the cast time so you can get into Razorwing quickly and be ready to shoot down the Synovias. And lastly, Arcane Velocity and Precision for the damage and fire rates, and that can be easily triggered by shooting the Eidolon in the head once just before shooting down the Synovias, or in the downtime phases before the Eidolon gets up. For the Dex Pixia, the build is almost the same as the main build, but for the elements I have Primed Heated Charge and Convulsion for the radiation element. And for even more damage, I'm using Magnum Force, that's 18.4k radiation. That's a lot of damage. As you can see, Titania is a pretty deadly little fairy, powerful, tanky, and elusive, especially if played and modded right. I hope people get a good idea of what she's capable of, as she is a solid frame. Alright folks, this has been it from me. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe. For more Warframe content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.